Hello, my name is Hannah Kozic, and I will be discussing standardized testing and whether teachers in a small rural middle school feel the same pressures of standardized testing that research on larger schools often portrays. So to begin, I want to identify some of the parts of the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001. This act is also known as NCLB. I wondered what could cause teachers to feel pressure to have students perform well. So under this act, I found that teachers ensure that students meet adequate yearly progress. So they're feeling pressure there by having their students meet adequate yearly progress, or AYP. The issue with AYP is that school districts that don't continuously meet AYP risk losing their Title I funding. Although not all school districts are Title I recipients, those that are risk losing their funding if they don't meet AYP year after year. So we know that standardized testing has become an important part of an educator's career, as students in grades 3 through 8 and once in high school take an English language arts exam and a mathematics test. Students in grades 8 also take a science test. So I think it's important to note that testing varies from state to state. So for example, in Pennsylvania, we follow the NCLB guidelines still, but we have also included high schoolers to take the Keystone exams, which cover a variety of subjects and determines graduation eligibility. So therefore, we can determine that many teachers that work in these subject areas and grade levels feel some kind of pressure to ensure that their students perform well. So this brings me to my research question, which was, do middle school teachers in a small rural school district feel the same pressure mentioned in other research? This is an important question to me because first, I grew up going to a small rural school district. I never really questioned whether or not my teachers had felt pressure to have me perform well on my standardized tests. But now that I am becoming an educator myself, the question is kind of interesting to me. It makes me wonder if all teachers throughout the country are feeling some kind of pressure. So as you can see, I included 4 of the 6 NCLB requirements. These 4 are the 4 that I believe cause pressure to come on to teachers. So the first one is yearly testing of student performance. The second is state standards for an assessment of AYP. The third, and I believe most important, is reports to parents and the public on school performance and teacher quality. So this requirement is one that stands out to me because it directly puts pressure on the teachers to have good student performance because they're being placed directly in the spotlight of the public. And the last one is increased qualification for teachers and paraprofessionals. This requires that teachers have a bachelor's degree and certification within their state. I'd now like to move on to the methodology behind my research. So in order to answer my research question, I conducted a survey using a convenience sample. So this was a trustworthy sample, as all of the sample teachers are certified educators, and none of them were first-year teachers with no experience preparing students for standardized testing. So the sample included 12 teachers ranging in experience and subject matter. The survey was completed using Google Forms, and there were a total of 31 survey questions. The answers were given based on teachers' individual experience with standardized testing. So as you can notice in the bar graph, years of experience was a survey question, and it ranged from 6 years to 31 years of experience. I'd now like to spend a few moments discussing the research and the results of the research. So I want to identify some significant responses as well. So I used Google Forms, as said, and this proved to be very beneficial to me as I was able to see the summaries of the responses, but I was also able to see the individual responses of the teachers. So I noticed that teachers with more experience with the standardized tests had solid yes or no answers to questions, whereas teachers with less standardized testing experience often chose the other button and would try and explain their thoughts or beliefs behind their answer to the question. So this brought to light all kinds of things. So one of the first things that came from the results was that teachers really wish that the way standardized testing is done would be changed. So for example, one teacher stated that testing should still occur, but maybe it shouldn't be tied to funding. Another teacher mentioned that maybe they should change the way questions are done. Maybe there shouldn't be trick questions or multiple step questions, and the way that written response questions are done should also probably be changed. So also the results brought to light that all but one of the surveyed teachers used some kind of test performance preparedness. So they wanted to prepare their students in some type of way. So this included providing students with examples from previous tests, and it ranged to providing students with a reward for test completion. So now I'd like to look at the following graphs. So the first graph, directly under the heading Survey Graphs. So this was a question from the survey, and it asked the teachers, have they ever felt pressured to bring up test scores? This could be for any reason, whether it's personal or maybe they felt some type of administrative pressure. Ultimately, I found that 92% of the teachers felt pressure to bring up test scores at some point in their teaching career. The second graph, located directly below the first one, was an interesting question to me. When I was doing previous research, I found that a lot of teachers were claiming that they were losing creativity in their classrooms and in their lesson planning because they were attempting to teach to the test. So I asked my survey group if they had ever felt like they were teaching to the test. In this case, 75% believed that they at some point had taught to the test. So this question is important in determining whether teachers feel pressured because of standardized testing. So teachers, again, they teach to the test in an attempt to help prepare their students for the test, and then therefore maybe the students will score better on the test. The third graph on the very bottom was a very interesting result to me, as I asked the teachers if they had ever felt like they failed as educators after receiving students' test scores back. So I found that more than 50% of the teachers agreed that they had felt like they had failed as educators after getting their students' test scores. This caught my attention as it shows that teachers take this testing very personally. They want their students to succeed, so if they get poor test scores, the teachers feel as if it's their fault. It's their fault personally. There's no blame placed on the students. And lastly, the graph at the very top on the right-hand side was a very significant graph for me. In this case, I asked teachers if they had felt like maybe teachers in other parts of the school or even in the district have ever felt pressured to raise standardized test scores. This was significant as all the survey participants agreed that yes, they believe that other teachers feel pressured to raise test scores. I found this very interesting as it was the only question where all of the participants had the same answer. So without knowing each other's responses to the survey, they all agreed that yes, other teachers feel pressured to bring up test scores. So to conclude, I found that teachers' answers to the survey determine that they too feel the same pressure that's mentioned in other research. The teachers see standardized testing as important, and as one teacher pointed out, it's really good practice for students in their future careers. So to be licensed in things like cosmetology, teaching, and being a CPA, you have to take a high-stakes test. Your certification requires it. So they said it's good practice, but maybe it shouldn't be the student's entire learning experience. Another teacher said that they felt that, yeah, it was good practice as well, but again, it shouldn't be tied to funding. So the teachers also believe that outside factors such as socioeconomic status influence students' test scores. So, as I said, this is a small rural school district. A lot of the students live on farms where agriculture is the family's main income, so therefore the school districts aren't getting a lot of funding coming in from the community. So they're relying a lot on federal and state funding. So when you have outside factors influencing your test scores, that can change what kind of funding you receive. It was also determined that too much emphasis is still placed on the results of these test scores. So as stated, the teachers don't feel that the students' scores should be the determinant for funding. They don't believe that it should be the determining factor for whether the teachers get new materials. That shouldn't be the final determining factor. Overall, I determined that standardized testing, as it is conducted now, is very unfavorable and has unintended consequences on teachers. Thank you for your time.